Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. We're really, really good and so excited to have you guys. So I'm going to just introduce you all and then we'll get into it. So Tina, just wave to the screen so we all know who Tina is. There she is. So Tina, since being invited to join the touring family of the legendary Roots crew back in 1999, Tina hasn't looked back, amassing a client list that includes some of music's hottest acts, including Chris Rock, Lil Wayne, Queen Latifah, Jill Scott, Maxwell, Nicki Minaj, Solange, Ella Mai, and Anderson .Paak, just to name a few. A quick look at some of the most successful tours in the past 6 years would reveal that Farris was at the realm of many of them. The force that is Tina Farris managed the highest grossing tour in the history of hip-hop, Lil Wayne's America's Most Wanted tour. The following year, she hit the road with the Black Eyed Peas, guiding the group through 15 countries, 76 cities, and 99 sold-out shows before 1.3 million attendees, grossing more than $86 million along the way. And if I read the rest of her CV, we would be here forever. So we're going to be... Thank you, Tina, for joining us. Oh, we can't hear you. Hang on. Is she... Can we try... Can you turn your microphone on, Tina? Can we hear you? Oh, I still can't hear you. Oh, we can't hear you. Maybe just go out of the room and come back in, Tina, and then we'll see if we can hear you. Yeah. All right. So before we we'll get Tina back, I'd like to introduce you to Ashley. So Ashley, there we gotcha. We gotcha. Thanks, Tina. Ashley, give us a wave. Ashley Lomax is a Maryland native with over 16 years in the entertainment industry in various aspects. Ashley has been a local singer-songwriter for over 13 years. She's worked with the music touring world for over 13 years as well, starting out doing local work to working for Live Nation as a VIP touring representative for artists such as Janet Jackson, Slipknot, Kanye West, Chris Brown, Stone Sour, and many more. Ashley has been a production assistant for Cher and her Washington D.C. residency. She also stepped back into VIP, working on the Cardi B tour in 2019. As a hospitality coordinator for artists such as Chris Brown and Big 3 Basketball in the past year, she began her path into tour management by working with the newer artist Dominic Fike on his domestic and international tour. Welcome, Ashley.
So much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so exciting. And then we have Salinda. Give us a wave. And the lovely orange there. In a career spanning 30 plus years in live events, Salinda Walker has produced concerts, festivals, cruises, theatrical performances, award shows, and corporate conferences. The ability to take a client's vision from abstract to fruition is a special talent possessed and appreciated in this dynamic professional. Starting her career as an audio technician in the major entertainment market of Chicago, Illinois, and furthering her skills in production management throughout international spaces has afforded her the chance to see the world and make the impossible happen at every level. Welcome, Salinda.
Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, the wonderful Tasha. Give us a wave, Tasha. We know who you are. At the very youthful 35, Tasha specializes in project and people management with expertise in global live entertainment production. While studying at the University of Florida, Tasha worked in a multi-purpose collegiate arena at the Stephen C. O'Connell Center for 7 years. She then landed her dream job in 2012 as a tour manager with Creative Production Partners. She moved to Brooklyn, traveled the world with artists such as Ne-Yo, Rick Ross, Prince Royce, Anuela AA, and Cardi B, handled advanced logistics for CPP's roster of clients, including Ciara, TLC, Boyz II Men, and the Jacksons, as well as produced live event performances for Jarek Jeter's Turn 2 Foundation and the Vanity Group. Thank you, Tasha, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, we have quite a lineup. What between all of you, what haven't you done? It's fantastic. So I'd really like to get started and start to talk about a little bit about what your management role is and the path that led you there. Maybe we'll start with Tina, and then we'll go around the group. So tell us how you got started, and what your roles are.
Okay, I was a groupie. I was the Roots weed girl in LA, and I used to hang out with them and follow them around. I was a school teacher at the same time. And so I'd visit them during like spring break or summer break. And one summer I just stayed. That's it. I'm a tour manager, so I'm logistics. I'm like the mom of the show. Anything you need to get the act onto the stage and paid is what I do across the board. So whatever is going to push that artist to move is what I do to make sure that we pick up the check.
Wonderful.
Good money.
And what about you, Ashley? How did you get into the business, and what's explain your role in the industry?
Yeah, I kind of got into it out of a bout of self-sufficiency as an artist. Quite frankly, not having enough hands on deck to help or knowing who to figure out what, and enough reverse engineering and researching. And then I having a family member, a woman of color who toured, helped on that aspect of just some understanding. But it all started with my own interest in owning my own, figuring it out, and then helping others locally. That's kind of where it started, because that's who I started with. As time went by, I started doing local venue stuff in D.C. and Baltimore, and then I started going, okay, well, I'll do D.C. to Philly. I'll do Jiffy Lube to the Garden. I'll do Jiffy Lube to TD Garden. And then it just kind of stuck on the East Coast on a VIP side, and then I just pretty much worked my way through with Live Nation. The past 4 or 5 years has been hospitality coordinator work, which has been great. And in between it, I've done local TM work, but in a commercial sense. In the middle of my Chris Brown tour in 2019, I got an offer to do Dominic Fike's tour, which was great because it was small in the essence of 11, 20-year-olds, but it's also 11, 20-year-olds on a tour bus. So in comparison to arena tours, club run, something very different than what I was used to. And then that's just kind of how things took off. 2020 occurred. And then September, I was very blessed and fortunate to have some tour professionals have me be a production assistant for Biden headquarters in Wilmington. So I got to be a part of that indoor event load-in situation in the mid of a pandemic, COVID compliance and the rest, and then actively just kind of doing temp agency stuff now for a COVID-19 call center at home. Just trying to do my part until we can get back. That's about it.
Wonderful. Pivoted to doing some stuff in the organization in politics. I'm quite fascinated from the other side of the world.
It was a very weird thing that came into play, but a lot of it has all come back to organization and honestly management. It's just kind of been, I can have my assistants run my thing as long as everybody out of everyone else's way on tour. That's how I was as a vendor. This tour runs. And then once I got into a crew, I realized what a family is in this and what it means to do your part and what it means to individually do your thing and just make sure the day runs smooth for your end. So when I got the opportunity, I was incredibly excited and fortunate. So, and all this time, I'm very blessed.
And it's great to see that also your skill set is being able to be applied to many different sort of realms, not just in one industry. It shows how applicable it is in other roles.
Yeah, I think it was just filling the gaps after a while, because I knew some things. I knew settlement, I understood advancing, I understood budgeting, I understood some aspects. And then as time went by, it just got more refined and then got a little more detailed. And then it just turned into, okay, well, you want me for this? That's cool. If you're on the East Coast, you need help with that, I'm your girl. And so that's and like I said, having a family member of color, a woman of color in the industry was wonderful. I got to see that there is a person like this in this industry first. It wasn't something foreign. I didn't know it wasn't true. What I didn't know was that there wasn't a bunch of hers. That's what I got hit with. And then it was just a scavenger hunt for years of like, what do you do? Please, let's be friends. Can I?
Where's my ally? Fantastic. Thank you, Ashley. And how about for you, Salinda?
Oh, okay. Have to think back a long time. But I started in the industry with one of the only African-American sound companies in the United States, Sound of Authority. A gentleman by the name of Ernie Green had that company. And I went there on one day to interview to be an intern because I was at Columbia College learning how to do sound engineering, so I thought. And I went there in this dress and heels, and because, all I had known was going to regular interviews. So I'm there in these dress and heels, and I'm walking in the shop, and people turn around, they're looking at me like, where is she going? Dress and heels. But that was how I knew how to interview. So I started working with him I think I did maybe a couple weeks in the shop or something like that, just doing show prep. And then I went out on the show, and I was thinking, this isn't what they're teaching me at Columbia. So eventually I stopped going to Columbia, which young people, if you're watching this, don't drop out of college. But I started doing live events with him as a sound tech. And I kind of wanted to engineer, but as I learned more about what they did and what I like to do, I sort of maneuvered into stage management, because at the time there weren't that many good I shouldn't say that. There weren't many stage managers being hired to do the shows that we were doing. They were kind of depending on the audio company to run the stage on some level, because we had to pass out mics and all this. So I kind of slid into the role of stage management. And in doing so, as there were shows coming up and people needed someone to do that particular role, they would hire me to stage manage, which then translated into me production managing, because they didn't hire that position either. So I would have to deal with the stagehands, the building, different vendors, set production schedules and things like that. So it just I kind of maneuvered my way into doing those things and learning how to do those things with on-the-job training, essentially trial and error, and working with some of the best people in the industry that would come through Chicago. I learned so much. And working with Jam Productions and Live Nation, and shout out to Chris Weathers, who we worked together on several different shows. And I was a tadpole pup, if you can call a tadpole a pup. But I just learned so much, and I had exposure to so many different things that it was kind of a natural progression to move from audio into production management, at stage management, and in the touring realm to sort of do logistics and things like that. So
fantastic. And did that opportunity come because the job role was there, or somebody asked you to do it, or you asked to do it? Like, how did you transition out of that audio into more of the production management, stage management? You said that stage management became obvious because it was needed, but then beyond that?
Most of the show, we were doing radio shows, and we were doing, when certain tours came through, of course, that wasn't the role that you would fulfill. I fulfilled either the stagehand or the audio technician role, which was kind of the third person who mic'd up the band, wired up monitors, handed out mics and stuff like that. So as I was doing that, I was the person that the artist had to come to get that mic if it was just a radio show or something like that. So I needed to know how long they were going to be on, what was their first song, what was their last song, so I can know how much time I could go and sit down. But I would find those things out, and it kind of was a natural progression where the person that had hired our audio company to do audio would say, hey, our next show, can you stage manage it for us? Because, I don't know all those things. Can you just handle that? And so that was kind of how I fell into that job, because it was necessary so that the audio engineers also knew what was coming next, how many people were going to be on stage, how many mics you had, that kind of thing. So it was kind of a natural progression for my stage tech position. I just sort of kept building.
I think it's interesting, because I think if you have that natural tenacity to organization, you suddenly then in that kind of environment start to be given responsibility, because you're like, oh, that person's very organized, so okay, you can do that and you can do that.
Yeah, that's true. Even in my regular 9 to 5, I do server kind of, that's what I'm looking for. I do project management and server troubleshooting. And I find that those organizational skills help me to do that. And I do a lot of projects for the job that I have, and it's just production management in a corporate arena. So it's not different.
I love that this trend of already using these skills in other realms is quite prevalent. It's amazing. So Tasha, tell us about you.
Well, I had a very fortunate, sort of opening into the industry. When I was in college, like you mentioned, I worked at the Stephen C. O'Connell Center. I worked in a number of different positions there, including some technical, some leadership. But Neo came through Gainesville and rehearsed at the O-Dome for 3 or 4 days. And I was the steward on that crew. I was one of 2 stewards. And little did I know at that time, I met my now boss, Ronnie Stevenson, when I was just, a local venue crew chief. and we had a great show. It was an awesome experience. I was a fan then. I'm still a fan now. A few years go by, and after I'm done with school, one of the things that's very unique about the O'Connell Center, at least at that time, we were only one of like maybe 4 universities in the country that were using students as technicians, as ushers, as security, you know, and sort of in-house staff. And that was very unique. And I didn't realize that until I started touring myself, that there's, you know, just a huge difference between playing universities versus, you know, any other type of venue. But that stood out to Ronnie. And so when he was looking to grow creative production partners, he reached out to my boss at the O'Connell Center, shout out to Jeff Chenery, for a recommendation. Like, was there anybody who graduated that you liked, who you think would be looking for a gig in this industry? I was working at the time at a boutique PR firm. I went to school for mass comm, and I didn't realize the entire time I was in school, I was working crazy hours at the O-Dome, that production was my true love. And so, you know, I graduated and I went and did the job that I was supposed to do with my degree. And then I got there and was like, this ain't it. You know, and that's no knock to that job or any of those opportunities. But when Jeff gave my name to Ronnie, of course, I was like, absolutely, recommend me. I sent Ronnie a cover letter. I sent him a picture of my face awkwardly because I was like, I don't know if you remember my name, but maybe you'll remember my face. Turns out he did. I ended up having a 3-hour interview with Ronnie and Geeta Khanna, who's like now my soul sister for life, at the Fontainebleau. They came through with Neo and they were like, we're going to be Florida. Let's sit down and talk. I did not understand at that time that it was a job interview. I thought it was like a, you know, handshake backstage. And so Ronnie definitely razzed on me because I was dressed like I was going to a show, not a job interview. And it was, we were in the coldest conference room that the Fontainebleau has, I'm sure. And by the end of it, when he was like, yo, this is a job interview, like, what are you wearing? I was like, well, the joke's on me. I've been freezing for 3 hours. But at the end of that interview, he was like, man, so what do you think about Brooklyn? I was like, is that a test? I've never been. I think it's cool. I did not get at all. I thought it was like a day player situation. I did not get at all that it was, you move to Brooklyn, this is a full-time gig, there's an office. I had no idea. You know, and he played it cool at first. And then finally, because he's one of those guys that really believes that timing is everything. And now I believe that too. But he said to me, I really like the story of this. If it's possible and it works out, if you can make it happen, you know, given that you didn't know you'd have to move, I assume you have to have some conversations about that. But he was like, I think it's a great fit and I would like it for it to work out. And lo and behold, almost 9 years later, here I am telling that story. So wow. Shout out to Ronnie as well.
Oh, that's amazing. I think it's also interesting that, you know, these kind of jobs aren't on the school, when you're at school, it's not a list that you get to pick from, right? You don't necessarily know that this is a thing until you stumble into it. It's quite interesting. So let's talk a little bit about, all of you have toured in some way, shape or form. And for a lot of people, maybe they've been in resident shows on our audience or whatever. They've never actually gone out on the road, and especially maybe not in your realm of work. So tell us a little bit about perhaps what are some of the challenges of working in touring productions? What were some of the things that surprised you when you first began? Perhaps again, we'll start with Tina and seeing that she's got that big tour that she did with all of that revenue that came in. I'm interested also from an international perspective with you, not only just locally, but internationally. What was that transition like and what were the challenges that you faced?
I think I started in school as a sociology major. So the idea of traveling the world was appealing to me. So it wasn't the challenge I accepted. That was a part of making it fun. But probably the biggest challenge would be translating that same energy or that excitement to the actual artists that I was dealing with. So grad school, I'm also a psych major, right? So I was able to use that and manipulate people into liking what we like. And so we're very American. You know, if we've never been anywhere, we only think that everybody, if it's not like our stuff, then it's all weird. So probably the biggest challenge is convincing people you'll be able to stay over here for a month or two. You can eat different foods. You don't only have to eat McDonald's. Let's try this. So a lot of my early years, because I was a teacher, it probably was, I call them field trips now. I have a lot of field trips. A lot of my tours are built on what we gonna do later, because, you know, you can easily hate each other after a week. You know what I mean? It only takes so long to be on a tour bus with a bunch of funky boys, you know, to send me running. But once you know that that's what it is, and you start to have the comforts of home, you give somebody another alternative than just, you're on stage working your butt off for this money or nominal money or big money, but just making sure people are comfortable and their mind is right the whole time. That's the biggest challenge. Everything else is you can, fix it and make that this is just fun. You chose this, right? You wanted to go on the road, right? Otherwise you could just perform in your backyard. If you didn't want to see the world, I could choose to do this, stuff like that. So that's probably the biggest challenge. Of course, racism and sexism is a challenge, but somebody just yelled at me across the street from my house today. So wow, that ain't nothing. That happens.
I love how casually you just threw that in.
Well, I used to say that, like, oh, sexism and but I've gotten older, and I know that is just a part of, is also cold sometimes. It's also, I'm not saying it's not horrible and ridiculous, but I would be remiss if I focused on that more than the joy of actually seeing somebody perform live every night on stage.
Absolutely.
And just out of interest, did you feel that experience changed when you were touring internationally, or was it sort of still the same when you were working with others?
Of course.
Yeah.
We woke over here. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. We have a little bit of wokeness, being that we are a young country, I should say. Yeah, sexism is worse. Racism is stupid. But the food, focus on the food.
That's what we were talking about before we started this webinar. We were talking about where the best
I like after night, but I'll make sure I hit that restaurant. But
I mean, so overall, though, you were saying that like the logistics side is the practical, the tick the list and get it done, but the people management side is really where you approach
the challenging part.
Yeah, that's a challenge. Yeah,
for sure. Logistics. I'm good at logistics. I just sat here and produced a whole thing in my front yard today. Like it was I do everything the same way I do a tour, right? My partner's like, you have a radio on? Like, what is happening out there? We have a new lawn. We have everything. But keeping people motivated, right? Keeping people, I just think it's so extraordinary that somebody wants to open their mouth and really think that people in the audience are going to want to hear it. Like, that's crazy. So as long as I can keep that person feeling that good about themselves all the time, then, that's the job. Everything else, logistics are difficult, I guess. But again, that's the challenge of it, right? We could all be we could work at Kinko's if we didn't want a challenge. So I think having those different situations makes it even more fun. You know what I mean? I like setting up the same stage in a different place every night. That's cool. I think that what got harder for me is I just don't like the business. I don't like being the middleman in a stream of people who don't matter, like managers, promoters, like all of that got on my nerves. And I am not one to hold my tongue, and I don't work in corporate structures, and I don't give a shit about sexism. So like it gets hard for me because I'm an asshole. You know what I mean? I'm not compliant. And so making sure I trust that I'm okay and I'm doing the right thing, even though there's a business standard. Well, that's just business. Like, I hate arena tours. Like, you can have that shit. Because I hate every production manager ever. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's a dick. So I don't want to do that in particular. But I like my small, like me and the Roots, like 18 of us, we kick it. You know what I mean? Me and the internet, we kick it. Me and Chris Rock, there's 5 people. Like, what? I'm doing that. But crews and load-ins and trucks and all that, I'm good. I make the same money wherever I go. Somebody said, "Oh, I like the spectacle of it." I was like, I do, except I don't like promoters, and I see too many things that look wrong. And I'm pro artist, so I don't vibe with everyone. I should say. That's it.
I love it. I love it. And how about you, Ashley? Tell us about some of the challenges or experiences you've had in, moving around the country.
I mean, I think for me, quite honestly, it's surprising how much more stuff has gone on in my local county before it really even happened in another city or another country. My family, my mother especially, and my aunt traveled a lot for their specific fields of work. My mom works in the medical field. And so I always had this understanding that other places that you go, you just can't put your thing on it because you don't understand it. You either need to adapt or respect what it is on a cultural point and then figure yourself out, right? And I think I learned that early with Japan. That's one of the first international places I went, and I tried to go somewhere to eat, went upstairs into this one place, and they're like, no, women go downstairs. And that's the first time I'd ever come across anything like that. I think I tried to get a pedicure with like the fish or something, and they were like, tattoos, no, get out. I tried to it was
that's the fun part.
Right? And at first I was just like, what is going on? Right? But then at the same time I was like, no. Like that's completely what is about coming here, is knowing that you aren't here to tamper with it. You are here to live your life safely as you need to, do your job, get in and get out, as long as your visa is safe to have you here, right? But other challenges outside of it, I mean, when I did VIP, I was really in an audience space. So as the years have gone by, it's kind of like pushed from audience back to crew, 60 people, 40 people, right? And for me, a lot of the challenges came from like I think in some spaces I feel bad that I have the understanding of how some guys vent on the road. Like there's a lot of things I don't understand, but then there's some things in the space of we're all stuck in this together, and I gotta live with you. And if you're the sexist one, I know that. Let's see this early. If you're the one that's really kind or misses your family, and I know that I can at least know to say something. So VIP to hospitality was a really easy transition, only because the challenge was just who's the person complaining. Is it 1,000 people or 300 people, or is it one? It's all the same thing. Someone wants something done and they want it done now, right? So for me, the challenge has always been to be quick about it, because as long as you're resourceful and you have an understanding, and I think being an artist and touring made things a lot easier for me, because I got it on an artist point of being particular about you wanting things a certain way, privacy, things in your room, etc. But I also got it on an audience point, being a fan of certain people. I paid this money. I bought this seat. I expect this meet and greet. They were supposed to do this, and I don't know why it didn't happen, right? I think it's made me patient, and it's made me tolerant to not find challenges in things, because there's no challenges. It's just solutions. We're just, waiting to figure out, right? So
come on, it's pretty.
So for a lot of this stuff, like I said, once I realized some of these tours were like high school cafeterias, and I was like, we're not going to make that a trigger. We're not going back to that. And for those who don't see me or who know me, I'm 6 foot tall. So in a lot of spaces, it's just kind of like, let me just work and go about my business, right? So it took me a long time to really get into the challenge of making friends. That's what I will say. It took me a while, because I was just like, I'm a woman here. I'm just here to do this. And when you're a vendor, I really felt like, okay, that's crew, and they make it clear, So go make the best of your days off. On my first real tour on the bus, Janet's crew was incredible. I had women tour managers, and my aunt was road manager, and the men were kind, and they all were like, if you need this, let us know. Don't hesitate if you're uncomfortable. Ask all the questions. And Jen Jacobs, one of the best wardrobe women on earth, was the one that said to me, whatever city you go to, remind yourself you might not come back here. So buy that thing if you see it, or that thing if you want it, and do not feel guilty. You are getting paid next week. Like just don't be silly, right? But don't lose where you are right now. You might not get back here. And I think that energy first made 2020 a little bit easier and made me so much more clear. You know what I mean? Because so much of it I wasn't present for. And now I get to sit here for a year and hold that nostalgia. So
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's
you might make me go back on the road.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll be honest. This is the longest I've been home.
Yeah.
Once this tour thing started and I got in, really, it was out and I was gone. So to be here this long, it's like, it's great to see my friends. It's great to see my family. It's got so much stipulation to it, right? Because health and concern and safety. But at the same time, it's been a challenge to be here knowing that there's other places I could be.
Like, I'm losing all my time traveling. I ain't got no more miles.
I want to fly.
Let me see. I guess one of the things for me was I started touring I guess I thought I was young. I was 24. But it was the language barriers, because we did Europe and we did Japan. And I did go to McDonald's a lot. Tina, I'm sorry.
In Japan, I did too.
And I ate French fries for some reason.
They're really good there, and they have the original apple pie.
See, there you go. I think that was one of my challenges, because I hadn't been exposed to that many languages. Even though the high school that I had gone to was, really kind of diverse, but you know how sometimes you stay in your bubble, even though you're in a diverse environment. But so I hadn't been exposed to that many languages. So it was kind of interesting to have to manage, because at that time I was a production assistant, have to manage runners to tell them what I needed. And there was a language barrier where you're going, okay, did he get the right thing? Then he comes back with something and it's like, do I know if this is the right thing? Because it's in a different language. So, but I think that was one of the challenges in terms of the job. But it was an amazing experience that I definitely would not change it for the world, because it does broaden who you are and your ability to communicate so much more on a different level with just the people. Once you do hit stateside again, you're like, okay, I can do this because I just told that guy who doesn't speak a word of English how to go get fluff and fold done, So I think that was a wonderful time. And of course you experience, as Tina has said, you experience the sexism, you experience the racism, but you experience that in all countries and all areas. So it doesn't really phase you on some level. You just are sick and tired of it. So, but you stay in who you are and you allow for your respect to come with that specific individual. And I think you can make it work. And for that butthole who just can't get over it, you just get over him and keep going about your business. So I think that's kind of how I've done what I've done. A friend of mine and I did an event where we were the only two Black people in this particular office. And she said, Salinda, I don't know how you can do this. It's basically them telling you, hey, little Black girl, come make this copy. Hey, little Black girl, come do this. They're basically saying that to you, and you're just going about your, but you go and you grab that piece of paper and you go and you make that copy. I said, because at the end of the day, they don't define who I am. So, and what I need to do is this job, because someone hired me because of my reputation to get it done. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to get it done. And I'm going to make sure that when I'm done with this, I don't see them no more, essentially. But it's kind of, you have to sort of maneuver through these types of things that we encounter as Black women, especially as young Black women, in a way that you maintain your integrity and you keep moving forward. You don't let anybody stop you because of some roadblock they want to throw at you, because that could stop you. And there's no way I was going to let that happen. I'm too stubborn for that. So. But those are some of the challenges that I had encountered and how I got past them.
Stubborn and resilient, I must say, I'm sure.
Indeed.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. And Tasha, tell us about your experiences with touring and challenges.
I would say, I think one of the things that often gets overlooked, especially from the outside looking in on, what it means to have a tour life, that can feel very glamorous. And I think what people don't realize that can be a challenge for us, particularly as women of color, getting started in the business at a young age, is that it's a 24/7 work environment. And that's not relatable, because even if any person can do their best 9 to 5 and find a way to behave. But when you add in all of the different things that life on the road entails, including alcohol, drugs, late nights, early mornings, co-ed bunking situations, like nobody co-ed bunks with their coworkers in other fields. That's not a thing.
And keep in mind, co-ed bunk with their coworkers, and some of the coworkers have cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
All kinds of things happen in that environment that are not relatable, in your sort of normie life, 9 to 5. And I think as a tour manager in particular, being the one to establish boundaries, have hard conversations, like, let me talk to you for a minute. That's a role that we have to play that's not fun, because everyone on the road is an adult. And, there are many, many, many parts to this job that I love and I would do for free because I do love it. I still get goosebumps every show. And there's parts of the gig that legitimately, like, I need to take home a check for. I need to be paid to do some of that work, because people fight you uphill to do what they want to do,
Yeah.
And so to keep that balance, that's something for sure that I think is a challenge. And to have your own sanity and peace while you do that it's so important, but that's definitely one of the challenges. And just to touch on, what you mentioned, Tina, about having a good time and being in a healthy work environment while you do it, I would say another one of the challenges, especially as tour managers, is making sure that the creative, the budget, and a healthy work environment all align, because those are things that don't inherently go together. And there's definitely a lot of people on the business side of it, that pull each one of those things in a different direction. And as a tour manager, you're also an advocate, and you're the one who has to say, like, it's not going to be like that for my crew on the road, for my band, for my artists, like, not doing it. And it takes you a while. I will say, like, 35-year-old Tasha feels very comfortable sitting in that seat. 26-year-old Tasha was like, I don't know, is that what it's like? So, you grow into that, but I think that balance is really important.
Yeah.
I think it's just a wonderful perspective. We often don't see how different it is to other people's lives, and we just onboard all of that as part of the job without consciously saying, this is a lot to deal with psychologically with all of those people. And it comes back to, what Ashley was saying about that management of people and spending time sorting that out and making sure people are happy, Awesome. So I want to get to some fun stuff, and I'd love you to share with us some of your most memorable show or incident in your career that always stands out for you in your working career. Who's got one first? So I don't want to put you all on the spot. So has somebody got a memorable experience, event? Could be scary, could be funny, that you just can't forget about in your career thus far. Ashley, you got one?
I mean, my resume, I've worked for some very colorful, very interesting personalities. So I guess I'll go with a fun one.
Okay.
And then you can get the gist from there.
Okay.
I worked on the St. Pablo tour for Kanye West, as I like to call beginning to breakdown, however you want to put it. And then came back, and then it ended. So that's a challenge, right? One of the things that we had backstage in that time also was that I was doing VIP. So basically, there at one point there was to be a stage on the floor. I think a big hole in the center of it, and my 300 people go in this. I get to Indianapolis first day of work at rehearsals. There is no stage on the floor. Took it away the day before, and now there's something just flying, and like just the stage that's flying. And where do we put my 300 people? He wants no barricades. He wants, so it turned to a thing the first day of what do we do? Where do I put them? They paid, they paid for this. Like, what do I do? So the quick fix I realized early was that the real appeal of the VIP was knowing what side the stage like dropped and lifted. So if you wanted to be in front of it when he came on or came off, where Kim was sitting, if she was there, where Mike Dean was set up, if you were interested in his setup, and first access to the merch. So my first 300 would have first access unlimited. So first show, my 300 bought all the merch. They didn't have enough pressed up, and my team bought all the merch and then started selling it on the floor to others. So that's how it started.
Oh my goodness.
And then in between it, they had slushy machines in the back. And this is the fun. So they had slushy machines in the family party room. That one was, I think it was Henny and Coke, strong kicking. The other was, I think, Grey Goose lemonade. Pretty good. And somewhere along the way, his wife takes a picture, posted it on Instagram, and that's all she wrote. Because then the next day, for the rest of the tour, for the next 4 months, was people trying to pay me $300 for a slushie, trying to show me their ID to prove of their age, to get me some so they could get the photo, the whole to do. And then that ended up pretty much being the gig, was where does Kanye land and can you get me a slushie? So that's my fun one. There are weird things backstage. Not often, but every once in a while there is a slushie machine that everybody wants.
That's amazing. Tina, do you have a story like that?
My stories aren't fun. Let me think.
I find a fun one. I tried to find a fun one.
It could be something that wasn't fun. That was just a challenge that you overcome.
What about funny now?
Right. I'm like,
yeah. With
the now. Yeah, mine all seem so tragic. No, not tragic. Tragic, like you're admitting your faults, right? Okay. Mexico. No. Yeah. Mexico City, Black Eyed Peas, world tour. We get off stage, or I'm in the crowd, and I see the pilot. We had a private plane. I see the pilot at the party. I was like, what?
Oh, no.
What are you doing here? What are you doing here in the audience? They were like, oh, thanks for inviting us. I'm like, but we're flying out tonight. They were like, what? It was one of the first times I learned that midnight thing is always different for other people. Like when you say 1 a.m. or 12:05 a.m., some people don't know the date, or you have to really confirm that that my 12:05 means Friday morning, right? They were like, oh, we thought you meant Friday night. So we were thinking tomorrow. I was like, oh, Jesus, how am I going to fix this? But, poker face. Everybody gets off the stage. I'm trying to slow them down. They're like, don't we have to rush to get to the plane? I was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a second. I'm doing my best to slow them down. We're in Mexico City. Everybody's done with being in the back. They're like, I got to get out of here before I get I was afraid because I was going to have a bunch of people sitting in an airport. But I found that when I said I fucked up, like all hands, what you want me to do? It's going to happen. We just got to sit here probably for an hour. Cool. But it was like one of the first times I learned, like, okay, if you just take responsibility up front, do all the things you can. Like I did slow us down. I didn't rush people. It wasn't a fast out. I was just like, come, let's all just go at the same time. But it's funny now. but it was.
So was it just that the guy took some time to recover and get out there, or did you have to actually get another pilot in to get him out of there?
We got another pilot. They woke somebody up to get in, and it was just waiting on him to get in and go because I couldn't use the same pilot.
Yeah.
No.
He was too busy partying.
Okay, they're like, it's Black Eyed Peas in Mexico City. Hey, what are you doing here?
I wish we had a camera shot of your face when you saw them.
I have so many of those. Like, oh my god, rookie. But I was a rookie. Like the Black Eyed Peas were my first pop band. Like I hadn't done private jets and stuff before with the Roots. We were a bus band. So that was my learning curve of pop.
Raising the stakes there with some extra things to facilitate. What about you, Salinda?
Ooh, how do you follow near and present danger with a story? Mine, I can't even think of anything. I think one of the first experiences I had in the production office was, and this was because I had been doing audio for so long, and so I'd never really even been in a production office, right? Because the audio tech doesn't go in there for what? You get out of here. So I'm working as a runner for an Al Heyman show, and I can't remember who the production manager was at the time. I don't know, but he had me do tickets, tickets for, folks to come in and there are people to come in and sit down. So I go to the box office and I get the tickets and I come back and he gives me the list and this name gets 2 tickets, this name gets 3 tickets. So I'm just counting the tickets off because they're tickets, not a general admission show, right? It's a seated show. So I'm just putting people are all over the audience because I'm just counting off tickets and it's like, what? You want me to go for night? I can do that, but you asked me to do tickets. I had tickets. I put tickets in an envelope. Yeah, that was a pretty bad night for me.
Ooh, that made me sweat. All the tickets I've ever had to deal with, and fix and relocate and refund. Ooh.
Yes, and they were out there during the entire opening act, relocating people. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. But that was cute. So what was he gonna do?
That's amazing. I like that story. And Tasha.
Okay, so mine is definitely also a funny now. So my first tour as a tour manager by myself on the road in that role was Mastermind 2013 with Rick Ross. And that was the first time that Ross actually toured as a headliner himself. So there was definitely a big learning curve for all of us in terms of the format, the system, day to day, how everybody wanted to move around. But fun fact, the majority of people on that tour did not know that it was my first tour as a tour manager. So I had this like deep anxiety all the time of like, everyone's going to find out I don't know what I'm doing. I was calling Ronnie like every day, crying hysterically. And fortunately, like in the years since, I've cut that out. But at that time, I was high stress all the time, totally freaked out. And we did a show at Constitution Hall. So, like right by the Capitol building, you could see the Washington Monument down the street. And I get a letter, my name's on the rider. I get a letter on White House stationery talking about how there is a no smoke policy at Constitution Hall because it is a homeland security threat. And the letter goes on to stipulate like all kinds of penalties, right? But the letter is addressed to me. It's not addressed to the artist. It's not addressed to the tour. It was addressed to me specifically. And so I'm freaking out. Like they're going to come and find me. There's going to be someone here, like some narc of sorts, is going to be here and know if people are smoking and whether or not they're my people or people in the audience or God knows what. They're going to come for me. I'm going to get my passport seized. I'm going to be like penalized. I was freaking out because we all know like where that whole camp stands on the cannabis debate, right? We were like almost sponsored by, Blunt Wraps. So it was a lot for my 28-year-old heart. And I remember like having a full panic attack, running out of that building and hyperventilating, because also, Ross wasn't coming to the venue super early. So I passed on this information, of course, but like in the shuffle of things, no one responded to me that they received it or cared at all about the policy, anything. So I have no clue what to even expect upon arrival. So I'm like outside the building, completely hyperventilating, crying hysterically. I mean, obviously alone. And now everyone knows that happens. But I think like that's when I had that moment. We all get to a point when you do this for real, where you realize, regardless of how upset you are, that is not going to change anything. And that's not going to provide a solution. And I had that epiphany in that moment on that tour. And I look back at that person and I'm like, man, Tosh, you were so stressed and nobody came for you. Nobody came for me. Nobody cared at all. There was nothing happened at the show. There was no consequence afterwards. But, that's something that we deal with as tour managers. Like our name is on the rider. It's my email address, my phone number. So when something goes down, like you're the one who gets the note, you get the letter, you get the whatever the case may be, and it's not that haha funny now. Even still, I'm like, oh, I feel in that moment.
I learned that as well at the border, taking them across the Canadian border. Was people got records?
Yep, I aged like 10 years on that tour.
That's my first question. For you to come on to tour with me,
please, like everything so I can get the driver to.
Need to scan your passport.
From now, so when we're there, nothing. Just go outside. Please don't bring nothing. Like, promise me, please, kids, please. And then then when we were getting closer, they're like, "You sure we're gonna be okay?" It's like, why are you asking that?
We used to check whole bags of weed into hotel rooms. Like we would get a hotel room at the border, right? Check it in. Go across the board, do the show, come back and pick up our weed.
Like, come on, y'all. And what used to make it more
logistics.
What was upsetting for me was being in Canada, coming back and being like, we're gonna be in Seattle in like a couple hours. It's just wait, you chill out. So
get back to Seattle.
Yeah, I know border hotels for that very reason.
That
was before you couldn't get it everywhere. Like, you can get weed everywhere now.
That's amazing. There's an extra pillar of logistics that's not on the job description, is it?
You must be resourceful.
I said anything that makes them comfortable to get them on stage to get the check. That's the job description.
Yeah, pretty much. I learned that at Made in America, being the like black talent escort, and they're like, "Hey, they took all our stuff, but do you know?" Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, being resourceful is a big requirement, right?
It's huge,
for sure.
Well, based on that, I think what you're saying, all of you are just, very confident, very powerful women in your industry in terms of what you do, your autonomy, your ability to take on projects, organize logistics, manage people. What would you advise people who are looking to get into the industry? And please just don't say don't, because a few people always say don't. But what would you advise people who are looking to get into this industry? How to start, how to work on any of your personal development, not just skills, but how to build that confidence into taking on the projects that you've taken. Would anyone like to start?
I'm a hyper advocate of internships, radio stations, local venues you attend shows at. Is kind of, I always think having a relationship on a local sense is helpful, because when you aren't touring, you can come home, call somebody and be like, hey, you need an extra hand with something. And so I think I'm a big advocate of reverse engineering in internships. I can't stress that enough. Like, what's the actual thing you actually want to actually do with yourself? And then let's take it back and find all the people that can help you get there. I think it's research and development is important.
Agreed.
What about you, Tash?
I would say probably a few different things. The first I would say is definitely, especially when you're starting out, because I think until you settle into your career and kind of get you some swag, it's way, way, way too hard to be present, to enjoy it, to love any of it. Especially when you're trying to get put on, that's so much your focus. I would definitely say be present from the beginning. And I would say align yourself with intention. In the struggle to get put on, a lot of us stay in toxic work relationships, hoping that someone will call us for the next gig, whatever the case may be. And there's definitely something to the hard knock way to, faking it till you make it. And it requires a lot of relationship building and networking, but prioritize yourself and invest your time well. I think one of the things, or two of the things that are most important in this business, period, are communication and relationships. And I was very, very blessed to have a mentor in Ronnie to steward for me in that way. I've benefited from so many of his relationships, and I can see the value of that, of developing those relationships of my own, in the last almost 10 years now. And I'm so grateful that I was mentored by somebody who prioritized that, because it's something that it's a shit lesson to learn the hard way, that you see the same people on the way up as you do on the way down. So you always want to think about that. And every time I get in my feelings, when something doesn't go my way, I'm like, don't send that email, because you're going to come back here with some new artist and you're not going to have the juice that you have right now. Like, fall back. So I would say emails anyway.
I will send that email. I really do. But I do it because I treat all of my clients should be treated the same. I don't care if they're the opener or I don't care.
I absolutely do that. And I have mad respect for just burning shit down. Mad respect.
I learned that the hard way, working on tours of color, like artists of color, and the difference working on a rock tour, a metal tour, or any other ethnicity. Well, they treat you different. There's the tour that thinks it's security, someone's girlfriend or a dancer, and then there's the other ones that like, no, I actually have a position here. They just saw me 2 months ago doing something else and hold some sense of reverence or respect. But mentors, Curtis
That's
Battles.
why I have to burn it down, because you treat me different.
And I think Curtis Battles and Malcolm Weldon and Derek Wilson.
Curtis Battles.
Listen, Curtis, I say it all the time. I don't care nobody say. Curtis is the one man who called me and was like, "Do you want to be on crew? I'll pay you this." For only want to do it. All the tours I had done, it was more touching than people would realize, because he was the one that gave me the real shot of all of it, if that makes sense. Like, he was the one that was like, "Yeah, here's your position."
He's a great dude. Thing.
His name is Curtis Battles. That's how we step in the door.
What it is.
7 foot black man. What? Yeah. Say something to me.
You want to talk about somebody with history behind them? That man has been in this industry a long time, and it's nice to be behind someone that wanted to represent you and
100%. 100%. I would say my last, piece of advice to people trying to get in the industry, and you don't always think about it in the beginning, but hold the door open. It's easiest for you as the last one through to get the door for the next person. And that's something that I always try and think about, because to speak to your earlier point, Ashley, there aren't enough of us. Just us existing provides the visual representation to someone that it's possible.
I had 4 mentees this year that were all women. And I just was like, whatever you want to know, I'll tell you. If I don't know, I'll direct you to a woman that does. I promise you. Like, because now it's a fortune that I think my aunt didn't have, and others that have been in the industry for some time. And I think the only obligation that we have is to respect each other as women, not make this catty because the men do. And
I mean, most of the people that I've ever hired have been people who came up to me. Pretty much everybody, actually, that I've hired is, Robbie Shelton, Cardi B's tour manager, came and was like, I think I want to change my life. I want to be a tour manager. You do? Come on. I don't know. I mean, you're probably good. I don't know, but let's see.
That's amazing. So, Linda, do you want to add to any advice there on people trying to get into the industry?
I think for the most part, the intensity at which we all worked initially, that can't be taught. It kind of has to be in that person. So, and I get that what we do isn't rocket science. It's not healing cancer. It's not any of that. But you have to maintain your focus, because there's a lot of things that can get you off your square, so to speak, to use a 70s, 60s, 70s term. I ain't quite that old, but I think to instill in someone that wants to do this, that it is an 18-hour at least day most of the time. So if you don't have that kind of wherewithal to do that day in and day out, don't even start on day one, because at that point, you're going to disappoint yourself and disappoint the person that put you on. So when you're ready to do it, I mean, really do it and do the work, not do the party, not do the show, not, you got to do the load in, you got to do the sound check.
You got to find the towel.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
You know, she means look for them.
You know,
I mean, like curating.
You
she means actually find them.
So, but in doing that, you also have to know that sometimes you're not going to get paid top dollar. You're just not. Because when you walk in the door, you ain't top dollar material. So you kind of got to do it at a
hot take.
Yeah.
You're doing it because you love it. You still need to get paid. You ain't nobody's slave. But you got to know your market value in the beginning. So when you're starting in it, if there's another way to offset that income, definitely do that, because you don't want to resent the people that you're working for because you feel like you're getting paid $2 and you worth 20. So I say, do the jobs that you don't know, right? If you walk up to that audio guy at the console out there in the front of the house and he's willing to talk to him, because you just don't know. He may inform you as to, first off, he might not talk to you, but if he does, he might inform you of something that you don't know about, or a position that you could do on the tour that you didn't know about. So just have conversations and be open. And then when you get ready to do it, my first job on the road, I was making $700 a week. That wasn't a whole lot of money by comparison to a lot of other folks.
$350.
Oh, God bless you.
I got a free apartment. That was.
You got an apartment though?
Flex.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes you just got to take it in the beginning and do what you got to do. And you'll work your way to that point where you'll be paid market value, of course, because if you're good at what you do, people will pay you for that. This is a skilled position. It ain't a non-skilled position. So I say just kind of, I don't want to say pay dues because it's not about that. It's about learning the job, learning who you are, and knowing your market value.
Well, ladies, I want to ask you all, since I have so many of you here, and I always ask women, is your job attached to your self-worth?
Ooh, that is a great question.
No.
Especially when you do it at 18 hours a day. There's not a lot of free time.
I mean, I say that to say just specifically maybe in touring. I'm not being gender specific, but I just noticed that after a while, I think this pandemic has shown too that so many people's self-worth was somewhere linked to the necessity of them being of service in the industry. So I feel like I always...
Who you are, right? I am a tour manager. I am this type of tour manager. I am the tour manager of this. And a lot of your jobs that you get or how you're judged is based on who you've toured with, which is another thing that's why I don't tour with these. You know, like, oh, that's not an arena band. Oh, well, that's, you know what I mean? It took me a second to be like, shut up. Like, so? But yeah, I think it is, unfortunately, until you learn that it's not, it might be.
Fair enough.
I would agree with that. If not self-worth, definitely identity. Because like it or not, we have super high job satisfaction. You know, it might not be, to your point, Salinda, like it's not rocket science. It's not delivering babies. It's not necessarily saving lives. But if you don't do your job as a tour manager, people notice that. Things won't be right. And when you have that high job satisfaction, like I make a difference, my impact is known, and that gets taken away for whatever reason, that's a hard adjustment to make, for sure.
Amen.
I think there's a certain degree of importance that is placed on how you feel about when you do something well. And that's a good thing, because you want to do it right. You don't want to half-ass it. You want to do a good job at it. You want to be the best at what you do. And that's great. But it does not define you if you kind of screw it up. I mean, if I had said when I put those tickets in that envelope the wrong way, if I'd have said, well, I guess I'm done. But, you know, I didn't do that. And there's several things, like we do cruises, right? And we do these cruises where they're, you know, chartered cruises. And if you get something wrong going on to the ship, you got to live with that, because you don't have a way to figure it out. You can't pull up to Jamaica and go, hey, you got this? You can't do that. So
soon come.
You're right. Soon come, and it ain't coming at all. But you kind of got to be good at what you do. But even if you screw something up in that instance, you have to call an audible, figure it out. But you can't attach how you feel about who you are to that screw up.
100%.
You just got to kind of, it is a part of what I do, but it's not who I am. Who I am is a person of integrity, is a person who is a leader, is a person. I mean, there are all these things about you that are different from your job. They inform how you do your job, but it's not who you are. That's how I see it.
Would you encourage people to find that separation, like as they come into the industry as early as possible, to work on that identity and saying this is me and this is my job, and not mix them?
Definitely, because that builds character. Because you want to have character, which has nothing to do with what you do. It has everything to do with who you are. So I think if you have those certain traits, those qualities of a person, then what you do, you'll be good at it. Whether you're a truck driver, you're the beekeeper, whatever, you'll be the best at it because you've developed your character and you've got that integrity about what you do.
And that's not something that you get taught or learn, you know, in the industry. You've got to find that yourself, really, don't you?
The industry will make you something else altogether. Right?
I mean, I think that women often are challenged with finding their self-worth in any industry, particularly when men are establishing and setting these rules as, oh, this is it, this industry standard, you know what I mean? And that's constantly coming back at you. And that, you know, now that I think about it, that's probably why I'm so aggravated and over this. You know what I mean? Is that type of a precedent, you know, like it's traumatic, actually. You know what I mean? If we're thinking about it, it's like, I need hazard pay for that. What? Like if I had $1 for every time.
Oh, for sure.
Wow. That's amazing.
Sure.
And Ashley, sorry, keep going.
It's not the business to find yourself, Will. Then you should arrive that way, because you ain't gonna find it. That's what's not gonna happen. So if you lost and looking for something, you got to have a little bit of a tough skin to get there.
Yeah. And Ashley, how would you answer that question yourself?
I mean, I think for me, I didn't have time to focus on if my self-worth was attached, because I had in my mind at first the assumption of living up to my aunt's name. Which is a whole other thing in and of itself, especially because there's so many people who have family members in this or her second generation, and it's like a nepotism thing, or it's a favoritism thing, or they use it to their advantage. I know so many people who are just like in a position, not very skilled, but they're so-and-so is so-and-so, and then we're here, right? So it was never the force of being different. It was just always trying to navigate around somebody, trying to be like, your last name's the same as Charity, do you know her? Or the man that goes like the white guy who tries to figure out how to say, are you related to the other woman of color that I've toured with before? You kind of remind me of her. That awkwardness. constantly. So for me, my worth, I think, was so attached to me being in entertainment my whole life in general, that it was just the other facet to learn. We're here to learn. We're here to be a part of the team of it. And we're here to represent this artist and what they're doing. And I think for me, I got my self-worth from being able to be the friend that could come home, or the artist that come home and bring all this knowledge back to these artists to like do your contracts right, or load in, or actually rehearse and, you know, call someone and get the right equipment. Like for me, it was about making the worth back home worth it, if that makes sense. You know, because there's so many artists, especially now Netflix just came out with Dark City Behind the Beat. There's a whole thing that comes with Baltimore and DC and their music scene. There's just not enough of us that get the opportunity to get out or make it or tour. And you gotta make this not about you, man. It's not about me. It's not my show. It's not my thing. You know, I'm here to do this job, and I'm here to do this job for you when I get home. And that's how it all unravels for me. I think this pandemic had me questioning it those first couple of months. I was like, all right, who are we if no one's calling me for tickets? Or if I can't figure this show out for you in your city, or if I know my friends aren't coming to Merriweather or Capital One Arena and I won't see anyone I know for a year. That stuff got trying for about a month or so. And I was like, we're going to get therapists and we're going to wrap it up. We're going to come back better.
Yeah.
That's one final question I kind of want to ask before we wrap up is, from your experience, once we come out of this pause, what do you think will be different? What will be new? What will be the same? Got any predictions?
I did a whole little YouTube. I have a YouTube channel and I did a bunch of interviews with tour friends at the beginning of this. It's almost like a time capsule now. And I still stick to, I think, I don't know what we're going to do about buses. I think if we do, it's going to be half capacity. Everybody gets a junk bunk this time, right? Or just condos for life. But being a person who's predominantly done arena tours, I want to know what's going to happen. Like arena tours, are we going to do half capacity? Are we going to do theater but stay for 3 days? That's where my mind's always at. How are we going to scale this? Yeah,
all the prices have to go down.
Right,
the market crashes.
Right. Or the notion of skeleton crews, like people really doing 2 positions to make what they would make.
Or you can't bring all of those LED walls.
Right? Not all the lasers.
All of those lasers can't come anymore because you can't sustain that. I mean, I have had mostly small crews, so whenever I see the biggest crews, I'm like, really? You need all of that to do that? Oh, you're using all of this to sustain all that extra stuff, all that spectacle stuff. And I wonder if the artist just went out by himself, if they made the same amount of money after he paid everybody for all that spectacle. You feel me? That's where I think it's gotten away from. And I'm like, maybe this COVID thing.
Bring it back to the core talent on stage.
Not a bad idea.
And either way, that you think that probably and likely, given the amount of audience, the budget's going to have to be smaller anyway across the board, right?
True that.
At least to start off with. What are your thoughts, Tash?
I think testing is a part of scaling for sure. I think the hard thing that we and we've done a really good job on this panel and totally stayed away from politics, but I think the hard thing is going to be not figuring out how all the people who think COVID is real and are willing to get tested and vaccinated, those people, I think you can figure it out with, because they're going to be willing to take the steps necessary so that we can gather in person en masse. The part that I'm just not sure how we figure out are the wild cards. The folks who aren't taking the measures anyway. Particularly those that are completely outside our industry, who haven't had a year's worth of complete devastation of the way of life that we once knew. Who don't have a stake in shows coming back. because there are so many different strategies and so many ways it can work. The bubbles are a great example of that. And that's just a little bit harder to control, obviously, on a tour or even doing multiple dates because, you have exposure between.
It's probably still like realistically, even if we started to tour again nationally, the international one is still a ways away, you think? Because, I mean, we're not even crossing borders now.
I think that one's more open because other countries are paying attention and doing the work, So other countries limit you. You can't bring all that in. You can pick about 5-10 people. Y'all come in, do your show, leave. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be so quick to think that the Western spaces are the spaces that are going to have it all nailed down first because we don't know how to close our borders. So everybody else knows how to close their borders.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot happening in China right now. All over the country, and the Disney parks are open and things are full capacity.
Yeah,
and going on. But
they got kids that getting sent home from school for having COVID. I think they're just like not paying. They're like,
yeah, culturally, every country is dealing with COVID in their own way, and I think it's quite fascinating to see how each country has managed. It says a lot about it. So once we start to merge and try and cross borders in that's where that negotiation is going to happen.
They're second or third world. Their COVID's bad, but here we are running rampant like fools.
Right.
No kidding.
What do you think, Salinda? Do you think he's going to get back on the road, lower budgets? What's your thoughts?
I think that's going to have to be the way they start, with much smaller venues, much smaller audiences, and much smaller pay, much smaller ticket prices. But everyone wants to go. But as Tasha said, if in fact we're going to do this, everyone has to be willing to be tested, to be vaccinated, because I don't know where you've been. I don't know what you have. I can look at you and I don't know that you've got COVID or not. So I don't necessarily want to stand next to you. So if I don't want to do that, I'm not buying a ticket. So the powers that be have to find a way to make sure that everyone is comfortable with going to go with shows. And if you have to do multiple days, as Ashley said, if you have to do multiple days in these smaller venues, then to make any amount of money, or to just get things started again, and to show that once we come together at 50% capacity, we're good. Then at 75% capacity, we're good. It's going to probably be a gradual ramp up to becoming full capacity, but you got to start somewhere, and people have to be willing to make that sacrifice and invest that time and maybe take a couple dollars less in order to do so, in order to make some money. Because you got to get the industry back. And if you don't prove that it's safe, no one's going. Like, they want to do a cruise in November. I'm like, I don't know about that one. Y'all might be on your own. I'm just saying.
And so is there talk in your circles about anything upcoming and when?
Yeah, we have a cruise that's scheduled to go out in November, a charter. And the cruise industry hasn't even started cruising yet. So you can't even do site surveys. You can't do any of those things. But
I feel like people are doing that to test the ticket sales. Like I'm supposed to do something in person in September. And I'm like, I'm checking it out for you. I'm going to keep doing that. But is it really happening?
Right. Especially now that the rate of being vaccinated has slowed down. I got my first shot, and then I got real apprehensive about the second shot. I'm going to admit.
Oh, yeah, they say only 80% of the people come back and do the second.
Yeah, I'm part of that 20 that hasn't gone back yet, but I'm probably going to go tomorrow or Thursday. I'll send y'all an email if I actually go.
Yes, Salinda, I'm going to manifest
coming from the one working at a COVID-19 call center at this moment. Make sure to get your full vaccinations. The only way we all do this, like, I feel like I have to say it like a pitch.
No, that's really interesting. And also, but the interesting thing is like trying to testing the waters, like you said, to ticket sales, to, you know, it's kind of cart before the horse thing, because then you're like putting something out and then you're going to renege and cancel it. And that in itself can have people lose confidence. It's like, when do I book and actually know something's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
That's the difficult part. So do we all just wait until we know we can go full gas, or do we, it's a really hard time to navigate, I think, from everybody's perspective.
I think people will dip their toes in. I think this year, Q3, Q4, there's going to be, I mean, and to Tina's point, if you strip it down, there's a lot of things that become more possible. You know, in particular, if you have anything private going on where the audience is willing to be tested, or it's at a venue that's using, you know, the vaccine passport or something along those lines. You know, I think Q3, Q4 is when we're going to see people trying to figure it out. But I don't see touring coming back full steam until 2022.
Yeah. I think the same thing. I was thinking Q4 would be something. My logic was, if, you know, a lot of these artists started using Yonder and people were willingly locking their phones up to come in to see the magic. So maybe we'll live in a world where people will be comfortable to show, if it comes into proof of vaccination or however it needs to go. You know, I think entertainment is what keeps us youthful, and I think it keeps us alive. And I think a lot of people didn't realize how much they invest into shows until you realize 12 million of us can't give you what you want.
That's a lot.
Don't preach.
I'm saying, listen, I've done so many little podcasts with my friends, because it's just gut wrenching to just try to talk to friends and lift them up in something that you can't explain. And last year was hard, having people in like May be like, oh, sure, we'll be back in September. No, I need you to hear this is serious. You know how bad a flu is on the bus one time with everybody? You think we coming back? Come on. So it was just I felt like it was a lot of bubbles that got popped early.
While we're wrapping up, tell us a little bit about your podcast, Ashley. And did you start that this year, or?
I had done it years before, like in a weird space. I'm the Shazam friend. I'm the Nardwuar, Questlove, what are you listening to friend since a kid. So I always was the one that was like, let me stop having people call me about it and let me just post. Like, this is what I'm listening to now. This is what I think of it. And there you can go. So when the pandemic happened, it just transitioned from SoundCloud to YouTube, Ashley Alexander TV. So I have album reviews and then performances I've done years ago and interviews with tour friends. And then it started turning into people getting other tour people to be a part, especially of color, because there's so many people of color I never met. And I got to meet tons within the last year. And it's been eye-opening just to hear the stories. I mean, one day I got like all the vets who I'd never met, Victor Reed, and I got Malcolm Weldon, and I got David Nelson. I got like 60 years collective in one conversation to just be like, please just be honest with everyone.
That's amazing.
I want to listen.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to look that up straight after.
I gotta make sure to interview you all. That's what I want. I want to interview you all. That'll be okay.
Well, ladies, we've almost hit the 90-minute mark, so we're going to have to wrap up. But I just want to say, wow, what a wealth of experience we've had before me today. I've learned so much. You're all amazing people, and I really wish you the best for the future, and you know, getting back on the road and back into your jobs. Even though we know that some of you're still working and pivoting as you do. What an amazing thing. Anyone want to say any last words to our audience before we leave? Let's do it now. Tasha, you want to say something else before we leave?
Yes, sure. I was actually just typing a love note to this chat. It has been everything to see all the comments and to see so many of our road fam. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. Thank you for all the love you've shown us in the chat. And right back to all of you. It's been awesome. And to everyone on this panel, I am so flattered to be included, you know, as your peers. So thank you.
Tina, any final words?
I'm glad to have met all you ladies it's still not in person, but I look forward to snapping you guys up for some festivals I'm curating, but will not be at. No. Like, ooh, another crew of people who I can send out.
She's getting the names down right now. Right? Salinda, any final words?
Just grateful, entirely grateful for the opportunity to talk with all of you and to talk with the folks on the chat as well. I was so enthralled in everything that everyone was saying. I didn't respond much to anyone in the chat window, and I'm sorry about that. But it was such a great panel and such a good time. Thank you all so much, and thank you for including me.
Thank you, Salinda. And Ashley.
Being the baby tour person in all of this, I am completely enamored and still in shock that I am here. So thank you all so much for dealing with me and all of my happiness of being with you all. It means a lot to the women who are watching. Please know we exist in this. Do not think there's anyone absent. That's not true. Do what you want to do with your actual self. There is proof in that. To the men that are in this panel, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here for us in safe spaces when we are on the road together. Yes. I have to make sure to say that because there's a lot of kept my mouth was gonna get me in trouble. So thank you too as well. And my little bit of advice for people comes from an incredible woman who owns her own catering company in New York City. And I always like to use her quote. She says, "You can be unprepared or an asshole. You do not get to be both." So please do what you can to not be a jerk to others. You don't know when you'll see them again, and always make sure to have your good time management because it matters, and to be as organized as possible. Be kind to people. We're all in this together.
Amen.
So. Yes.
Fantastic. That's a quick question. Are you all on LinkedIn, or is there what's the best way to sort of follow you up? Tash, you're on LinkedIn,
Instagram,
Instagram.
You're right there.
I usually answer everyone.
Fantastic.
No, Rebecca, I'm not totally off the road. See, look at her. See how she's trying to.
She got you under pressure.
Megan asked, can she look all of us up on LinkedIn? Thank
you
for being respectful and asking, because some people don't. Yes. So thank you. Some people just be all in your inbox. Like, I know you. No, I don't. You on Instagram. Go over there. And
I respond to Instagram more than LinkedIn. I know that's whack, but
I respond to Instagram more as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, ladies. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, Nana.